It's time to paint. Welcome back to the channel, guys. We have the Proline Power Wagon body on my dirt drag build here, ready to go for paint. Today we're gonna paint this thing, get it mounted up, finished up, so we could take it out and start running. You can see I have the liquid mask all painted in the body already. I have my first color cut out, which will be black for the fenders. Before we get to spraying though, I wanna go over what I'm gonna do for body mounting. As you can see, there's no holes in the body at all. And maybe you can see this giant thing sticking up front. Let's go over the back first. That was pretty simple. The bed of the truck is just gonna lay on this plate. This is the original rear body mount plate that I had on my drag car before. I'm gonna put some strips of Velcro here, and I'll have some Velcro on the inside of the body, as well as probably some alignment pins or strips or something like that, and it'll Velcro to that. For the front though, I had to get that body really high to make it level. I couldn't use the original B5M or SC5M mounts either. It just had the body sitting way too low. So I had to come up with something to raise those body mounts pretty high to hold that front end nice and high and level the truck off. What I did here, I'll get some close-up shots, is actually took the screws out of my servo mount and put some threaded studs in there and use these aluminum standoffs. This now holds the servo in place, as well as acts as a riser for what will be my body mount. I may do something a little more fancy later on, but for now, this is just two little plastic standoffs I've created to give me a little more height and a strip of plastic here. I have a screw ran down, and this as well will have some Velcro on it. Same thing on the inside of the body. We'll put some Velcro and some alignment strips or pins or something to make sure it'll line up perfectly every single time. And then that body can just sit on there. It'll be held nicely in there with the Velcro, and I think it'll look sick. No body mounts anywhere that are visible. We'll have those light buckets mounted on once they're painted as well. So let's go ahead, and we're gonna start off with the black. Like I said, all of the fenders are ready to be sprayed, as well as some of the trim around the windows. So let's get to spraying. Now it's time for the fun part. I think I decided on a dark metallic blue for the actual body itself. Kind of went look at some pictures of these trucks back in the day, and there was some dark shades of blue, but I kind of wanted to give it a little modern touch and add some metallic to it. I don't have any navy blues, dark blues, but what I do have is some Proline Pearl Blue. Got a little pearl red as well as pearl black. And I'm mixing up a little color here. I'm gonna try to get you in close here so you can see the color really well. I'm kind of liking this. The only thing is now I have to mix a big batch of it, enough to paint the entire body with likely 3 coats, because once I mix the color, that's it. It's gonna be really hard to replicate the color once it's mixed. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to mix this up here, and we'll get to spraying. If the metallic blue was the fun part, well, this is gonna be the interesting part. Proline did a really good job in the bed of this truck. You can see the strips here, and this in the full-size truck would hold slats of wood in. And if you look really closely, you can see there's actually a kind of a wood grain imprint in the Lexan, but I wanna paint some wood grain. This is something I've never done in RC before. I have attempted it airbrushing on a larger scale before, but not with too much success. So this is gonna be some trial and error. I did do some trial and error already. You can see here I have a wing from an old drag body. and I experimented with some different colors, some different ways of getting a wood grain, and I think I have something I'm happy with between colors here and techniques down here. I'm gonna explain it before I do it because once I get in the motion, I'm not sure what's gonna happen, but basically I have a really dark brown mixed up here. I'm gonna spray this dark brown down heavier than I normally would on a first coat. I come in after that with a really tiny paintbrush and add some wood grain, some variation, stuff like that. And then after, with a bigger brush, I'll come in and just lightly drag across the surface and give us those really fine lines. Hopefully that gives us a very nice wood grain effect. And then we'll let that paint dry and come back and top it with a little bit lighter brown. That's the goal here, I guess, the attempt. We're just gonna try it out and see how it goes. Hopefully it all goes well. I think it'll look pretty good. Let's get started. I know I say this a lot, but I'm actually really happy with how this came out. That's probably like my catchphrase or something, but we won't know how this really looks until we can pull that mask off. So last thing we got to do is spray those bed strips. I'm just going to go with a simple silver here. I do have some chrome, but I'm not really sure if I want to go chrome. I feel like that might be a little too much, but who knows? I guess I'm deciding right now. Time to get this body mounted, but I'm curious how many of you noticed something. You probably noticed there's a little space in between the cab and the bed again. I made a mistake and yep, I'll admit it. We're going back to the short course base chassis. Not for performance though, like all of you guys were talking about. I'm doing this because I didn't like the way the body actually fit on the buggy base chassis. I liked the wheelbase when it was sitting at rest with the front suspension kind of sitting up high. But when that suspension compressed, the way the front end of this truck is, the wheels actually kind of push backwards when the suspension compresses. So those tires would have ended up rubbing a whole lot on the back side of my fenders here. Now, I'm pretty sure these tires are gonna end up still rubbing at some point, even in the back, which is why we're gonna do what I'm about to do. But I just wanted to cover that. We went back to the short course chassis. You can see the front tires are a little far forward, but when that suspension compresses, it'll be more in the center of the wheel well. Instead, I think this will give us a better look and hopefully help keep this body in good condition. Now, to do that, a couple of things. For one, I had cut this center chassis plastic piece, so I actually have some parts 3D printing right now that'll replace these back pieces and also give us a place to mount a battery strap, so that'll be nice. The other thing is, since I had cut the body up pretty good, I had to make some modifications. I went ahead and 3D printed two little spacers that go in between the cab and the bed. That fixes that problem. I had also trimmed up these running boards a bit, but they still fit, if you can see, right inside the wheel wells, inside these fenders. So I'm gonna go ahead and use some shoe glue to hold those in place. And I'm actually gonna use some shoe glue and drywall tape inside of these fenders, front and rear, hopefully to strengthen them up. That way when the dirt starts hitting them, they're not gonna fly and tear apart, but also to protect the paint. I'm hoping with the shoe glue and the drywall tape, none of those rocks and dirt or anything like that's gonna go through and chip up the paint. I'm hoping that'll protect it. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna do basically the entire fenders and the running boards. Probably gonna put a little bit where the body mounts are gonna be, front and rear. That way whenever I'm mounting them up, I'm not getting any kind of scratching on my paintwork. I may do a little bit on the front since I'm not planning on putting a bumper on this thing. I wanna keep this kind of strong in case I land on the front a bit, and maybe a little on the back as well. I'm gonna go through and shoe glue this thing up. We can get it mounted up and wrap up this video. Well, I ran out of shoe glue, so I didn't get to do all the reinforcing I wanted to do to the body today, just a little bit, but you can see I stopped just in time to be able to put the body mounts in. These body mounts are just held in with shoe glue, and I also reinforced that with a little bit of the rubber infused CA glue that I found to glue these tires to the aluminum wheels. They're held on really nicely now, won't go anywhere. You can see there's a little strip of Velcro on there, and you probably also noticed the little post sticking up from those 3D printed mounts. That is to help me with lining up the body like I talked about. So now when we're ready to run the body, once the battery's plugged in, we can set the body down, line these posts up, and I know every time the body will be in the same spot, and that's held on pretty tight. I can pull it off in the front very easily. The back is held on a lot tighter, but this should keep our body secure so we can run and make some passes with this thing. Other than the little reinforcing I have left to do along the inside of the fenders and a couple other spots of the body, this thing is complete. I'm really loving the way this body looks. Cue my catchphrase. From this color that I mixed up to the wood grain in the bed that I'm super excited about, I'm pretty impressed with myself with that one. I think the body fits really nicely now when I went back to that shark course chassis. And the mounts work great so that we don't see any body mounts anywhere. The last thing left to do is to re-clean up my wires because things didn't fit the same once I put the shark course chassis underneath. I have these side tray pieces 3D printing now. I have a new ESC mount 3D printing, just the top plate. And when those are done, in the next video, we'll clean up all this wiring and get this thing out there and get it dirty. Finally, we're gonna go run this thing. I know y'all been waiting long enough. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you like the way the body came out. I'm really stoked with it. It's one of my simpler paint jobs, but I'd also say one of my better ones as well. I can't complain with how this turned out at all. So until that next video, leave a like if you enjoyed this one. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of the color I chose, as well as just the body in general, everything about my paint job and the mounting and all of that good stuff. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video on this thing where we're gonna be getting it out. And as always, thanks again for watching. Peace.